share with you. Oh, I just realized I have to plug in my hardwire in my Wi-Fi. Just 1 second. Because if we're on Wi-Fi here, you guys, we are going to have problems. Here we go. That should solve that. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see you all here. I'm Melanie Wildman. I am the founder and creator of Nutracelle. Try this again. I'm back. Hopefully we stay on. Hi, everybody. I'm super excited to see you all here. And I can't wait to get started. This is a really cool topic. And I know lots of you that are joining us today have had weight loss surgery. Some of you are further out. Some of you are a little bit newer. And I'm really excited because I'm going to be sharing with you some really great information that's going to help you on your journey. And I'm going to start a little bit for those of you that don't know who I am. My name is Melanie Wildman, and I had struggled with my weight for most of my adult life. I would gain 100 pounds, I would lose 70 pounds, I would gain 90, another 100 pounds back. And in 2009, in April of 2009, I went and I had weight loss surgery. And I really, it changed my life. It changed almost everything about my life. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not so grateful for my surgery. But one of the myths around it, as you guys know, is that it's taking the easy way out. And I can tell you from my own experience that it's anything but easy. Every day is another day to keep working on who you want to be and where you want to be. And that's why I'm super excited to talk a little bit about long-term success and what actually works when you have bariatric surgery. What is the difference between people who are really successful, lose weight and keep it off, and people who have weight regain or they don't lose as much weight. So we're going to delve into all of that. Now, I had weight loss surgery 10 years ago. And I had the sleeve. What we're going to cover today isn't just for the sleeve. This is if you've had a lap band, if you've had a sleeve, if you've had a gastric bypass, if you've had the DS, whatever it is that you've had, this is going to apply to you. And we're going to be delving into exactly what we covered in the sign-up page. So the 3 biggest mindset mistakes that we all make. We're going to be talking about the 3 biggest risks of failure. And we're going to be talking about the truth around actually losing weight, how you gain weight, how you lose weight, and why what you've been told probably isn't right. We're going to talk a little bit about the truth about keto. There's a lot of myths around keto. We're going to blast some of those out the window, and we're going to talk about protein. We're going to talk about your gut health, and I have a bonus of lifestyle hacks to help you through the long term. Oh, Sarah, I'm so excited that you are having your surgery next month. It is such a change, and this is going to help you to stay on track as we move forward. So congratulations, and I'm excited for your future, and I'm so excited for you to get back on that loser's bench. Well, we're going to cover all sorts of things, so let's get started here. The one thing that I want to say before we delve in is no one chooses to be obese. No one wakes up and thinks, you know what, I'd like to gain an extra 10 pounds today, or boy, I'd sure like to grow out of my clothes and have nothing fit anymore, or I like it when people stare at me or people make comments. Nobody wants to be obese. Nobody chooses to be obese. And yet, it's such a difficult thing to go through life when you're carrying around extra pounds. You're judging yourself. People are judging you. Society makes fat jokes all the time. It's like the one last thing that you can make fun of people for. And yet, obesity is growing, right? So we don't want to be obese, but the obesity rate is growing. And it can't be that all of these people who suffer from obesity like me are all just out of willpower, you know, that we're all just gluttons and all we want to do is eat food. And, you know, people who aren't obese somehow have better willpower or better control. It's just not true. Obesity is now the leading preventable cause of death all around the world. And in North America, over half of us are overweight or clinically obese. And further south you go, the higher the obesity rate. So we know it's not just an individual problem, we know that it's a systemic problem. And one of the things that's really hard for people is how much we're judged. We're judged before we have surgery, we're judged when we're heavy, we're then judged after we have surgery. You know, 24% of medical professionals admit in survey after survey that they're repulsed by their obese patients. 28% of teachers that were surveyed said that being obese is the worst thing that can happen to a person. They rated it worse than getting cancer and worse than even being raped or assaulted. 66% increase in discrimination on people who are obese in the last 10 years. So the irony is, as we've been getting heavier, as a society, all of us have been getting heavier, we've become less tolerant of people who are heavy. And 24% is how much it's going to cost you as a woman when you're obese. So women actually earn 24% less at the same jobs when they're obese than women who are normal weight. And that shows just how systemic the discrimination is against people who are heavy. Before people have weight loss surgery, there were surveys done of people before they went and had bariatric surgery. And 87% of people who have chosen to have weight loss surgery said that their weight prevented them from being hired for a job. And I can tell you, years and years ago, I used to work as an executive recruiter. And I remember finding a woman who was in a really difficult to fill position. It was a really specialized position. And she was perfect. She had all of the experience that they needed. And when we sent the resume, they were excited. And once the interview happened, they came back and said, she's not a fit. And I knew exactly what was going on. It was because of her weight, not because of her skills or who she was as a person. They couldn't get past it. And those are the sorts of things that we face every single day when we're heavy. I can tell you that me 100 pounds ago is treated very, very differently, you know, even by, you know, staff at a store or even people holding the door open. I'm treated so much differently now that I'm normal weight than I was when I was 100 pounds heavier. 90% of us reported being stigmatized by coworkers or bullied at work. 84% of us have avoided being in public places because of our weight. And I know I was guilty of this. Really hard to find pictures of me when I was heavier. I know a lot of you guys do this. You hide, you know, we hide behind our kids. We hide behind other people. We're the ones taking the pictures because we just don't feel comfortable in our own skin. 77% of us report daily depression. And those are the realities that we face when we struggle with our weight. And even a lot of doctors, even sometimes our bariatric surgeons, they just don't get what it's really like to carry that burden every day. And it's not just about the weight. It's about feeling like you don't have control over your body and your weight and feeling like everyone is judging you. And we all know we judge ourselves so much harder than anyone else could ever judge us. But 14 months after weight loss surgery, 90% of us have increased confidence. We have less depression. We feel better about ourselves. So you can see that a big part of how we're feeling is the weight of the world that we're bringing in on ourselves. You know, the discrimination and the hatred that we face as heavy people, when that goes away, we start to actually feel better because we're not being discriminated against as much. And weight loss surgery for me has been the key to unlock all sorts of things that never would have been possible for me. You know, since my surgery, I was able to become Mrs. Canada. I was first runner-up at Mrs. Universe. I've written a best-selling cookbook. None of those things would have been even possible for me if I had not made that courageous choice to have weight loss surgery. And like so many of you, everyone thought I was crazy. My family tried to talk me out of it. I lost friends over it. People judged me. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so open about the fact that I've had weight loss surgery. I like everybody to know, and I want them to know what I've accomplished and that I've worked for it. And I want to try to just at least be one person that helps to break the stigma so it's not as hard for other people going down that journey. So weight regain, though, is a real thing with weight loss surgery. Weight loss surgery is just infinitely more successful than diet on its own. So once you become obese and you're carrying 100 or 150 pounds or more, it's very, very difficult to lose the weight on your own. In fact, the research shows about 95% of diets end in failure. And you can see the little line across the top. I don't know if you can see my cursor move there, but you're seeing that zero. That's the zero line for diet or no control. And you can see the different types of surgeries, and you can see people are losing weight in that first year, and then between the first year and the second year, they're leveling off, and then you can see the weight creeping back up on average, so creeping up over 4, 6, 8, 10 years. So what's going on? What's happening with the weight regain? Well, it really starts with your mindset, with what your expectations are and what your beliefs are about your surgery. So the first mindset mistake is believing that the honeymoon is going to last forever. So just like we saw that big drop off in the first year, about 80 to 90% of the weight you're going to lose after your surgery is going to happen in that first 8 to 12 months. That's your honeymoon. And the problem with that mindset is that right after your surgery, you can't eat very much. You know, stuff doesn't feel quite right after you start to recover and you're back on, you know, soft foods or full foods. You're starting to feel increased hunger again, and your surgery is doing all the work for you. You know, really in that first 6 months, you can kind of eat all sorts of junk. And for those of us that have weight loss surgery, right after we've had surgery, guess what the easiest foods are to digest? Right. The sugars, the drinks that have calories in them, things like French fries and chips, those are actually easier for us because I like to say they're pre-digested. They're so processed that they're pre-digested. So it makes it actually easier to eat. And the problem is you're still going to lose weight in those first few months, even when you're eating those things. And then your mindset starts to change on you. So even when you have really good intentions, the reality of being able to eat ice cream and still lose weight in those first few months, it tricks your brain and you start to build back those bad habits that are going to slow down your weight loss in the last 6 months of the first year and in your second year. The second mindset mistake that we make, and we all do this, is we have an idea in our head, a myth in our head of what that weight loss journey should look like. And it's a straight arrow, right, all the way down. So we're expecting if we lost, 20, 30 pounds in our first month after surgery, we're like, yep, woohoo, we're going to do that again. I'm going to do that the next month, and in 6 months, I'm going to lose all my weight. Wrong. That's not how it works. So realistic weight loss is a bumpy road, and you got to be ready for it. You got to be ready to reach out to people when you're feeling like, oh my God, I just plateaued. No, the weight just went up 3 pounds, right? It's not that the weight just went up 3 pounds. It's that this is a bumpy journey. And every time that scale goes up a little bit, that's your sign from the universe. This is your sign, your whisper from the universe that you've got to make some changes. You have to adjust, right? And I know lots of people will say, stalls are normal, don't worry. And I agree. You don't want to get worried. You don't want to obsess over it. But you do want to look really clearly at what you're eating and what you're bringing in, because it's the little things that add up. And I'll show you a little bit later on how to recognize it and, more importantly, how to deal with it so it doesn't trick you up. The next mindset mistake that we make is when we start to plateau and when our weight loss slows, and it will slow, we think our surgery failed. We think my surgery didn't work for me. I just saw someone else, on the forums who's lost in the same time period as me. They've lost 100 pounds. I've only lost 50 pounds. I'm failing. My gastric bypass failed or my sleeve failed. No. Your sleeve has not failed. Your gastric bypass has not failed. You cannot compare your weight to someone else's. But you also have to remember this. In the very beginning, when those pounds come off, they come off fast and furious. But then they start to slow down. And those slower pounds that you lose are worth more. The more weight you lose, the more valuable the next pound is that you get off. And that's so important to remember. Just think of it like the stock market. As the time goes by, the stock on your pounds goes up and they're worth so much more to you. They're getting you closer and closer to your goal because every pound becomes a bigger percentage of what you weigh. So you need to remember that the weight loss is going to slow down, but the value of that weight is going to increase. And that's where the balance is. So you need to really celebrate those smaller pound numbers because they're worth so much more than those easy ones in the first few months. So there's a few things that I've learned over the last 10 years that really separate people who are successful long-term and people who really struggle and put the weight back on relatively quickly or don't lose it as much. And these are what I call the 3 big failure risks. And the first one I think is going to surprise you. It's one a lot of people, I know a lot of surgeons will talk to patients about it, but we don't think and realize what it means. And when we were tracking patients over a 7-year period, this was one of the most strong indicators for failure, and that is drinking water with meals. And you might be thinking, well, this is such a simple thing, and why would that have an impact? Well, if you've ever had a clogged sink, you've had, junk and debris and whatever in the sink, and then nothing will go down the drain. But if you take a pitcher of water and you pour it on top, and it swirls around, and it breaks it up, and it lets everything pour down through, that's what's happening to your stomach. The number one thing that you always want is to stay feeling full. You want the types of food that are going to make you feel full. So just like we talked about, the pre-digested crackers and chips and those foods that are so easy to eat, they also digest really, really quickly, and they go through your digestive system. You're absorbing all those calories, and your hormones are storing all that fat. You don't want that. So if you stay away from drinking water with your meals, your digestive time is going to be 2-3 times longer than when you're sipping throughout your meal. It's really, really important that you eat. You wait about half an hour to 45 minutes after you eat before you start to drink and add liquids back in. So even though it's critically important that you're sipping and you're getting in tons of fluid through the day, not when you're eating. Super important. The second failure sign is not tracking every day. And I know you'll hear lots of people that will say, I don't weigh myself every day. I don't track every day. I like to track. I don't follow the scale. The scale will not define me. Well, that's fine, but you have weight loss surgery. You had weight loss surgery because you wanted to change the number on the scale. You wanted to be healthier. You wanted to be healthier weight, live longer, and have all the health benefits of bariatric surgery. The research is super clear. People who track their weight every single day lose almost twice as much weight as people who don't. I'm going to say it again. The research is crystal clear. People who weigh themselves and track every day lose almost twice as much weight as people who don't. This is an important takeaway. Make sure that every day you get up in the morning, you go pee, you get on your scale. Now, you don't let your scale define you. If it goes up a little bit, that's okay. That's a sign from the universe that you're going to watch what you're eating a little bit more that day. You're not going to let it take you down. And we do. We have some great app. We have a free app called Nudge, and we can share that a little bit later. It's great. You can just swipe. You can use it every day. It tracks your sleep. You can track your water. You can track your protein, and you can track your weight super easy on it. And it syncs with your Fitbit or your watch. It's called Nudge. You can get it at Nutracelle.com. Just look for it on there. And it's free. So you want to be tracking every day. And even if you stick it up on your fridge somewhere or you stick it in your bathroom, a little note, that's going to be invaluable. And it's going to do 2 things for you. It's going to keep you on track as you're going along. It's going to reset your brain every single day. The second thing that it's going to do for you is a year from now or 2 years from now after your surgery, when you are able to actually track what your journey looked like, and you have all of those numbers, it is so powerful for helping you to stay on track long term. And the other thing that tracking your weight does every single day is it helps you to see where your patterns start to be. So for example, for me, every time I get my period, I know this is TMI, but every time I get my period, I gain between 4 and 8 pounds every single month of water weight. Now, I know that about myself because of tracking, and so I don't have to freak out when I say the weight coming up. I'm like, oh, here comes flow. So now you know what's going on with your body. So it's super, super important that you do it. And you know what? You can use a notepad too. That is so fantastic. However you're doing it, track it and track it every single day. So just to recap, the first two were making sure that you track every single day. And I just lost, my slides just disappeared. I'm sorry, you guys. There we go. We're having troubles. The first one is making sure that you're not drinking and sipping water through your meals, that when you're eating, you're only eating. And the third one is probably one of the most important, and that's sliding back into those carbs and sugars. It's so easy to do. I've done it. I can't tell you guys how many times after I had my surgery that I would slide back into eating stuff that was unhealthy. And it always gets you. It's just little things, right? You're like, oh, I'll just have this couple of crackers with whatever I'm doing. And that couple of crackers is like a slippery slope where you don't even realize a lot of times that you're having a few more carbs and a few more carbs and a few more carbs and a little bit more sugar. And then the next thing you know, you've actually gained weight. And that's why the getting on the scale every day is so important, and that's why tracking is so important. So those are the three big signs of failure, is sliding back into those carbs and slipping while you're eating. And then the third one, of course, don't forget, is tracking every single day. There we go. So now we're going to cover stuff you've been told about losing weight that's probably not true. And we've all heard this over and over again. A calorie is a calorie. You'll hear people say things like, you know, the second law of thermodynamics. That's all bull. That is so much bull. A calorie is a calorie, and calories are important, but they're only one part of the story. And I'm going to show you why. A calorie is not just a calorie. Did you know that you eat, or the average person eats, not us after weight loss surgery, but the average person eats 1 million calories over the course of 1 year. So in 1 year, that's how many calories the average person eats, is 1 million. Our energy balance, our caloric intake, is regulated with a precision that's almost 100%. So I want to ask you a question. How many extra calories do you think you would need to eat starting at, say, the age of 20 to become an obese person by the age of 40? So let's say at 20, you're at university or you're at college, your normal weight, and how much extra would you have to eat if a calorie was just a calorie to get to develop obesity and become clinically obese by the time you're 40? It's a lot less than people think. This is going to shock you. It's 21 a day, or about 3 strawberries. I just held up 4 fingers. 3 strawberries. That's it. So if it takes about 3,500 calories to equal a pound. That's what they tell us, and a calorie is a calorie. You would only have to eat 21 extra calories a day, every day, for 20 years, and you would be obese at the age of 40. Guess what? That's not what's happening to us. Something else is at play. Something else is going on that tells our bodies to gain weight. And it's our hormones. Think about this for a minute. I know I have a picture of the little mice up, but think about when you go through puberty, right? So you have boys and girls going through puberty, and when they're 9, 10 years old, they look pretty similar. If you put really long hair on a boy and, put them on girls' clothes, when they're younger, it's hard. You wouldn't know. You would just call the little boy a little girl, right? They have very similar physiques between those two up until they start to go through puberty. And kids from the same family are eating exactly the same food. But what happens at puberty is boys start to eat way more food, right? They're eating way more than girls are eating. And boys are using they are putting on muscle. Their shoulders are getting broader. They're getting more muscle in their arms after puberty. Their shoulders are broadening. And women, when they start to go through puberty, girls, they start to develop breasts. What are breasts? Fat tissue. They start to develop hips. They start to develop fat in the backs of their arms, right? Where does that come from? Those are hormones telling your body where to deposit that fat. And that's one good sign that the way we add fat isn't just what we're putting in our mouths. And I'm going to break down, I think it's so important for us to understand how our body actually makes fat and how we burn fat. Because when we understand that, it gives us so much more control over what we feed our own bodies. So carbs and fat are how scientists make lab rats fat. So we have something that genetically modified, I guess, genetic mice and rats that are bred to develop obesity. So they're actually created in the lab and they're meant to become obese so scientists can study them. And guess what they feed them? They feed them 40% carbs and 40% vegetable oil. Okay? And that's what gets these rats and mice as fat as possible in the shortest period of time possible. Guess what we eat in North America? Almost the exact same thing. That's what we're eating. So when we eat French fries, when we eat hamburger buns, when we're eating donuts, when we're eating the foods that are the easiest to eat and are the most common, for fast foods, they are almost half and half fat and carbohydrates. And those are the most obesogenic foods on the face of the planet. When you put those two items together, sugar and carbs, along with fat, you are gaining weight as rapidly and as fast as possible. And it's not about the calories, it's about what it's doing to your hormones. And I'm going to break it down for you. This is what happens when we eat carbs and sugar. You can see on the screen here, our blood sugar goes way up. We're full of blood sugars, or full of sugars in our blood. And then as the time goes by, our blood sugars drop way down again. We get tired, we're hungry, we're hangry, we want more food. That's the cycle that happens when we eat carbs. But how does that sugar, come back down? Where does the sugar go? Well, we're not actually burning it. Where the sugar goes is our body releases a hormone called insulin. And that's how we get type 2 diabetes, is when our body no longer, when the insulin we're resistant to the insulin, and the insulin can no longer bring our blood sugars back down. That's how we actually develop type 2 diabetes. So our body releases insulin. What does insulin do? It actually binds with the sugar, with the glucose, and it does something that we don't like. It converts that glucose into fat. It actually combines with fatty acids and it creates something called a triglyceride. And that's literally how we convert the sugar we just ate, or that French fry or that chip or that soda with the sugar in it, spikes our blood sugars. Our blood sugar releases that insulin, and the insulin pulls the blood sugars back down again. But the sugars don't go away. They go on your butt or on your stomach. They actually get stored in your fat cells, and I'm going to show you how. So your body is telling you, eat glucose, eat sugar, eat food, you're hungry. But then it turns around and it converts that glucose to glycogen. The glycogen then combines with those fatty acids, and it creates something called a triglyceride. And if you've ever been to the doctor and they've told you you have high triglycerides, a lot of times doctors will tell you that's from eating too much fat. It's not. It doesn't have anything to do with eating too much fat. It's from eating too much sugar. That's what's going on. And guess what? Now, I made this so you guys will remember what that word is, the triglyceride, an evil triceratops. Those are giant molecules. They're monster molecules when they're formed, and they go inside your fat cell. They're actually formed inside the fat cells. So the glycogen and the fatty acids go in the fat cell, and they combine into this thing called a triglyceride. And it's inside your fat cell, massive molecule, can't get out. Guess what? It's trapped. So those calories you just ate from the chips and the French fries turned into the sugar. The insulin then brought your blood sugars down by combining them together and making these horrible triceratops that are now trapped inside your fat cell. And guess what? They're not going anywhere. And in fact, when they get too full of triglycerides, of what those triceratops, once there's more and more and more of those little monsters inside your fat cell, your body will split the fat cell into two. And now you have two fat cells. That's one of the reasons why it's so hard for people once they gain weight to keep the weight off, because you actually create and produce more fat cells. And once you create them, they never go away. So even though you can burn the energy eventually in those fat cells, and that's what you're doing with weight loss surgery, I still on my body have as many fat cells as I did when I was 100 pounds heavier. It's why it's easier for us to regain weight than it is for someone who's normal weight to actually gain weight. So we've got to be more careful. So I created a chart here because it's helpful to kind of visualize what's going on. So the purple box is the energy need that you need through the day. So if you're an average, adult male, let's say you need 2,000 calories. So you have to eat 2,000 calories worth of food. Now, if you're eating 2,000 calories worth of food from a simple carbohydrate or a sugar, something that's going to spike your blood sugars, then your body's only going to be able to use some of that for energy, right? You can only store in your body at any given time about 500 grams. So you're not storing very much. So your body can't store sugar. It can only use that small amount for the energy you need. That's the energy you need to think, to breathe, to sit at your desk, right? To sleep. You still are burning calories. You're using energy just to survive and live. So you're siphoning off only a part of it for the energy you need. And guess where the other part of those calories went? They got trapped. They got turned into those triceratops. They're inside your fat cells now. So guess what your body is telling you? You might have eaten 2,000 calories, but your body only got to use 1,000 of them. The other thousands become fat, and your body is telling you to eat again. It's telling you you still need to get to 2,000 calories. That's what's going on. So now your body needs more energy, and it's telling you to eat again. This is a feedback cycle. That's the reason why we get hungry, the reason why an hour after we've eaten, we could eat all over again. So that's what's happening in our bodies. What you eat is going to determine what hormones your body is producing. And that's going to determine where you store and how you store that fat. So it's not just that a calorie is a calorie. It's the type of calorie and what it's going to do to your body. So let's talk a little bit about keto, because I know a lot of you have heard about keto. Some doctors are pro keto, some doctors are against keto. I am I'm a modified keto fan. How does that sound? I want to talk about why keto works. It's fantastic. Your body can go into something called ketosis. That's where your body is running on a fuel called ketones instead of on the glucose or the sugar that we've been talking about. And you can do that on a low carbohydrate diet of almost any kind. You don't have to be eating 80% fat for your body to be burning ketones, okay? Now, the important thing to remember about keto is it's super effective. Study after study after study is showing that it's very effective. And we know it's effective after bariatric surgery too. But there's a catch. There's a really important catch to remember. And that is when you have a high-fat diet, when you're eating things really high in fat, they're very dense in energy. And when you combine it with a carbohydrate, remember back to our little mice? Now you're using the power to turn it into those triglycerides and store all of that energy as fat cells. You do not want to do that. Fat itself won't make you fat in the absence of carbohydrates and sugar, but the second even small amounts are eaten with a high-fat diet, that is the fastest way to gain weight there is. It's how scientists study obesity. So it's really important that if you're going to eat a high-fat diet, you have to be so precise to make sure that you're not getting in those sugars and those carbohydrates. And they hide in all sorts of foods, right? There can be, you could think at a restaurant that you've ordered a low carb salad dressing and then find out afterwards that it had, 12, 13 grams of sugar. So all the fat that you had with that meal that you thought was safe, all of a sudden now, that's like, obesogenic mice chow to make you obese. So that's why the keto diet traditionally can be so dangerous for those of us that if you can't eat super, super clean all the time, it's very easy to rapidly regain weight. And this is why in a gram of fat, there's 9 calories. In a gram of protein, there's 4, but your body needs to use one of those to convert the protein. So there's really 3 that you absorb. And then your starch, your sugars, your carbs have 4, and they're immediately absorbed, right? But when you take the carbs and the sugar, the 4 plus the 4, and you add it to the 9 calories of fat, now you've got 13 calories that you're storing all as fat. That's all dense energy that's not going anywhere. That's why it's so easy to get off track with a high-fat keto diet, okay? So it works brilliantly. But as soon as you introduce even a little bit of sugar and a little bit of carbs, and I've seen, you guys, I remember seeing one woman, and her doctor had told her about keto, which is great because a lot of doctors don't, but it told her, don't worry about it, just replace more and more carbs as you go along with fat. And she was gaining weight and couldn't understand why. That's why you can't just replace some of the carbs that you're eating with fat. It doesn't work that way, not with keto. You can do that with protein, but you cannot do that with fat. So your fat has to be in the absence of sugar and carbohydrates. So if you look here, you can see carbohydrates raise your blood sugars like we talked about. Protein does not raise your blood sugars like we talked about, and you're getting a discount. You're burning one of those calories in order to convert or process that protein. And fats do not raise blood sugar either, but they will store if you have them with a carbohydrate that raises that blood sugar. So when there are even small amounts of carbs, you will store fat calories. Okay, remember that. When there are small amounts of carbs, you will store fat calories. Really important. So let's delve in a little bit onto protein. Yes, we will do a recording and we will send the recording out for you guys. And we'll probably turn it into a blog on the website at Nutracelle.com. And you know what, Jessica, it's so great that you're writing it down, because we know that helps. When you write stuff down, it actually helps you to remember it better. So it goes into your brain. There's something that happens with our brain synapses just through writing. So that's great that you're doing that. Protein is the most filling macronutrient on the face of the planet. The most filling, I'm going to repeat that again. Protein is the most filling macronutrient on the face of the planet. You'll hear people talk about, well, fat is more satisfying. Yes, it tastes really good, right? Fat tastes good, sugar tastes good, but protein is what makes you feel full. And I saw someone had posted a little on the chat section that it's hard to find ways to add protein to your diet. Part of why it's hard is we're a society that's really fueled on sugar, but the other part of why it's hard is because it makes you feel more full, and so it's harder to eat more of it, and that's its secret sauce. That's why we like it so much. So protein is the most filling. One of the myths around protein that you might see on the internet is that protein will raise your blood sugar, right? So if you're on a keto diet, eat less protein. That is absolutely not true. Unless you're on a ketogenic diet to control, epilepsy or things like that, that is an absolute myth. It has been shown in double-blind studies that it is not true. It is an absolute myth. Protein will not raise your blood sugars, okay? Put that to bed. What will raise your blood sugars is sugars and simple carbohydrates and starches, okay? So your most filling foods are going to be your protein, your fiber, and then healthy fats. So if you want to think, you can eat as much as you want of things that are protein. You can eat as much as you want of things that are mostly fiber, right? Your green leafy vegetables. Those are almost all fiber. And you can eat in moderation healthy, delicious, yummy fats. That's what it should be. Now, what does protein do? Protein does three really crazy things. The first one is it makes you feel full. It increases satiety. That means that you feel fuller longer. And in fact, there was a study done that showed that people will spontaneously eat 441 fewer calories a day when they increase their protein. Okay? So it's not that people are trying to eat less. It's that the protein itself makes them feel full and they're just naturally not eating as much. So when you hear people say, well, yeah, a high protein diet works, but it's only because people aren't eating as much. Well, duh, that's what we're going for. We want you to feel full. You need to feel full so you're not feeling snacky, right? What are one of the biggest differences between people who are naturally slim and people who struggle with their weight? People who are naturally slim get full easier. It's not like they're thinking about food and hungry all day long. They don't have that problem, right? Those of us that struggle with our weight, we are hungry. It's like holding a beach ball underneath the water, right? Trying to not eat when you're hungry. Hunger is a physiological response. It's like holding your breath, right? You're either hungry or you're not hungry, okay? So people who are naturally slim don't have those hunger hormones coursing through their bodies, so they're not as hungry. It's not a willpower issue. They just don't happen to have it. And getting more protein in is your super hack. It's a great way to adjust your body so you also can naturally feel more full and less hungry, and that's what protein does. Whey protein also increases fat burning, and it protects your muscle at the same time. In fact, by just adding about 30 grams of protein every day, your body will actually burn about 100 calories more a day without doing anything, without doing a thing, which again comes back to is a calorie a calorie? Well, it can't be. It's because if you're eating a calorie from carbohydrates and you're eating a calorie from protein, and your body is more efficient in burning more calories when the only change is the protein, well, then maybe a calorie is a little more important than just being a calorie. So the type of protein that you eat makes a huge difference, right? We think, well, protein is protein, right? You'll have I get my protein from quinoa, which we'll cover in a little bit. But the most filling protein by far is whey protein, followed by full soy protein. Casein is not a great protein. There's a lot of proteins on the market that use milk proteins and use casein because they're cheap, like borscht. They're super cheap for manufacturers, but you really want a full whey protein. That's what's going to make you feel the most full. And if you think how pure is the protein? How much protein are you getting? Well, a great way to think about it is how much food you will have to eat in order to get that protein in. So if you are going to eat quinoa as your protein source or plant-based protein, you have to eat 836 calories just to get 30 grams of protein from that. Whereas you could have a couple scoops of Nutracelle and be way under 200 calories, and boom, you've got 30 grams of protein. So the type of protein is really, really important. You want to have most of what you're bringing in protein. And this leads to what happens when you eat protein. Now, if you just have a regular protein shake, you're just like me, I'm having my protein shake, but you had a regular one, so not one with prebiotic fiber. Guess what's going to happen? Your body is going to be able to metabolize between 15 and 20 grams at a given time. So if you have 30 grams or you have 20 grams, about 3/4 of that, your body is going to, half to 3/4, your body is going to be able to utilize at that time. Now, your body can't actually store protein. You have to continually eat protein, right? We can store fat just fine, but we can't store protein. The only way that our bodies can access protein is if we're actually cannibalizing our own muscle, which can happen when we're starving, and we don't want to do that. So what prebiotic fiber does is it extends the digestion time of your protein. It slows down the absorption of your protein, and that increases something called protein synthesis. And I don't want to get too crazy with the science, but all it means is your body is able to use and absorb all of that protein. So it's making you feel fuller longer, but you're also getting all the health benefits from that protein. So that means you're getting you're helping your immune function. It means you're helping with your muscle development. It means You know, you're holding on to your lean muscle mass, you're sleeping better. All of those things happen when you're getting more protein. It's good for your skin. It's good for your brain function. That's all really, really good. And so when you have that fiber along with the protein, it extends that protein and it makes it so you're getting 100% of the protein that you're taking in, and you're not getting these extra calories. So let's talk about our gut health. Let's talk about poop. Let's talk about our gut health for a little minute. Now, this is super important for bariatric patients. It's important for everyone because 97% of us in North America have an unhealthy, completely unbalanced gut flora. But for bariatric patients like us, whether you've had, you know, a gastric bypass, or whether you have sleeve, or whether you've got, you know, a lap band, our microbiome is even more affected than someone with a full digestive system. Why? Part of it is because of the procedure itself. Part of it's because we're using much less of, or not at all, our stomachs. And so it causes the bacteria in our bowel to change, and we need to repair that bacteria in our bowel. Did you know that you have about 10 to 11 trillion bacteria in your body? That's 10 times more than you have cells in your body. That's how much bacteria, and it dictates everything. It dictates our sleep, our health, how we absorb food. It's super crazy. So if you're taking a probiotic, right, the little probiotic pills or supplements, even with a really big, you know, $8 or $20 billion bacteria dose, you're still a drop in the bucket. What you need to do is actually repair yourself, the gut flora, so the good bacteria that you need for all those healthy benefits are able to thrive and survive. So if you think of the probiotic as the actual live bacteria, and you think of a prebiotic fiber, that is the fertilizer that your own natural bacteria needs to thrive and grow. Now, you can have bacteria that is fertilized by sugar, and that's going to create more hunger, more cravings. It's going to have you store more fat. Or you can have the kind of bacteria that grows with prebiotic fiber, the healthy kind. And so you want to fertilize that good probiotic and the good bacteria with lots of fiber, lots of protein, and that creates a healthy microbiome. So these are just some of the things that prebiotic fiber has been shown to do by research. It reduces that hunger hormone, ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells you to eat, tells you that you're not full. Leptin is the hormone that tells you you are full. And so when we are clinically obese, when we gain more weight, our fat tissue actually tells our bodies what hormones to make. And so people that are obese actually produce way more ghrelin, and we're resistant to leptin. So we don't feel as full, and we feel more hungry. It's like a double whammy. And prebiotic fiber helps to bring that back into balance. It also decreases the stress hormone cortisol. So cortisol, of course, is what makes us all stressed out. It's what makes me snap at my husband or snap at my kids, right? And so when you're stressed a little bit, the stress hormone's really good for you because it can help you, meet that deadline, or, if you're having to run and grab your kid away from the road, a little bit of stress hormone's good. When it's chronic, it's super bad. It leads to weight gain. It disrupts your sleep. It impairs your brain function. All those things happen with cortisol. And so when you're able to reduce your cortisol levels by having a healthy microbiome, you're actually able to handle stress better, and you're not getting as hungry. It also improves your blood sugar. Remember when we talked about the protein, how it extends that digestion time? Well, the prebiotic protein also helps to level off those highs and lows of sugar. So let's say that you have something like carrots that has a small amount of sugar but lots of fiber in it. When you have that along with the prebiotic fiber, that's going to keep your blood sugars nice and level, so you're not releasing insulin. And that's what we don't want. Once you get those blood sugar spikes, it doesn't matter. Your body is releasing insulin, and the insulin is creating triceratops, which are trapped inside those fat cells. So prebiotic fiber gives you a little more wiggle room there. And It also reduces insulin resistance. So for those of us like me, right before I had my surgery, I was pre-diabetic. I had metabolic disorder. Lots and lots of us find our diabetes resolved right after weight loss surgery, but it can come back. And it often comes back because we've started eating bad carbs again, right? And that's what sets off that whole cycle, and it can lead back to being resistant to insulin. So super, super important to have that prebiotic fiber so it can help you naturally not be very, very sensitive to your insulin, so you're not releasing very much of it. It also improves your heart health. So we talked a little bit earlier about those triglycerides. It lowers your blood pressure. It's great for people with hypertension. It improves nutrient and mineral absorption. This is so important. Our food doesn't have as much minerals in it as it used to. You know, where we're farming, the soil is depleted. Groceries, fresh produce is taking way longer on trucking before it gets to the store, and we actually consume it from where it was taken out of the farm. And so we're not getting as much nutrients in our food. But worse, we're not even absorbing what's in our food because our microbiomes are so disrupted. So when you have bacteria that thrives on sugar and you're eating healthy food, you're not even getting all of the nutritional benefit from it. So when you start to eat a prebiotic fiber, it actually helps you absorb those nutrients from your food, especially things like magnesium and potassium and some of the minerals that we need. That helps with our overall function. You know, one of the big signs that you might be low on magnesium is swelling, edema around the ankles, right? All of these things come from our food, but if we can't get it out of our food because our microbiome is so disrupted, we've got a problem. It's also been beneficial for people with Crohn's, IBS, and colitis. My husband struggles with this, and before I started Nutracelle, we couldn't even go out to restaurants. We couldn't go out on a date anywhere. We would go to the movies. Don't tell anyone I would eat popcorn. We would eat popcorn. And he would be so sick. And we have lots of customers that struggle with Crohn's, colitis, and they're not having to worry anymore about how close they are to the bathroom. It changes your life. It changes your life. It improves regularity and it reduces constipation. With one caveat, you must be drinking lots of fluid. You got to be getting your water and your fluids in, you guys. But if you're not having regular poops, if you're constantly getting constipated, if you're going more than a day and you're not having poops, if your poops are hard to get out, right? If you've got little rabbit pellets coming out of there, you've got a problem with your microbiome. That means more fiber. Get more fiber, drink more water. That's what that means, okay? And it's an early warning sign. You should be looking at your poop, you guys. I know it's gross, but you should be looking at your poop. All right, it elevates sleep and it elevates your mood. You just remember we talked about there's over 10 trillion bacteria. There is a mind-body connection that we know is so strong, and it can actually elevate mood for people with mild to moderate depression. It can show significant improvement. And it helps you sleep better because you're not waking up with your body telling you to feed. Did you know that when you guys are light sleepers and you keep waking up in the middle of the night, you can't get back to sleep? One sign a lot of times is that you're not getting in enough protein, you don't have enough fiber, because your body actually thinks it's hungry and it's waking you up to feed. So it's 64% more powerful for weight loss than regular fiber, prebiotic fiber. It's super important. This is one of our amazing customer service team, Tracy, and Tracy has lost now, we have to update that photo because she's lost 110 pounds since she's been with Nutracelle, and she did it just by having her shakes with the protein and the prebiotic fiber, and it is so powerful because it makes you feel full. It helps you burn more fat. There was a study done at the University of Alberta. They took 2 groups of women. They put them on the same number of calories, but they gave one group prebiotic fiber and they gave the other group not. They didn't get the prebiotic fiber. Guess what? The group with the prebiotic fiber lost 228% more fat during the duration of the study, eating the same number of calories. And the bonus was that it helped them to feel full, but it also protected their lean body mass. Super cool. Actually, she did not have surgery for her, so she's one of those amazing outliers. I wasn't able to do it before I would gain mine back, but she's kept hers off now for 2 years. Pretty amazing. And you can, if you go on our Facebook page or on our Facebook group NutriTalk, and just give a shout out to Tracy, she'll respond to you. She's one of the most beautiful people I know on the face of the earth, just inside and out. So prebiotic fiber helps you feel full, helps you control your cravings. It helps your body absorb those nutrients. And it extends that absorption up to 8 hours so your body can utilize all of that protein. And we don't eat enough fiber anymore. I don't know if you guys know this, but 100 years ago, humans were eating 50 to 100 grams of fiber every single day. We used to eat way more fiber. Today, the average person's only getting in 14 grams of fiber, and none of it is prebiotic fiber. You know, the food that we get in the grocery store is anything that comes in a package has almost no fiber. And we're told that stuff has high fiber that doesn't. Whole wheat bread. How many of us, raise hands, have been told, oh, eat high fiber foods like whole wheat bread? Whole wheat bread has 1.9 grams of fiber. That's it. Broccoli. Now, I love broccoli, don't get me wrong, especially with cheese. But broccoli, only a serving of broccoli, 2.4 grams, right? Nutriline, 2 servings, you're at 10 grams of prebiotic fiber. So it's a really good way to get both your protein and your fiber in, your prebiotic fiber. And what's really great is you can have it not just as a shake, like I like to do to replace breakfast or lunch, but you can cook with it. I make bread, I make pizza, I have a cooking show you guys should check out on YouTube. And I show you how to make super yummy stuff with your protein. Because it's mixed with the fiber, it makes it perfect. Yes, Nutracelle is not free. You guys, if you don't know, 2 of my kids have life-threatening nut allergies. My youngest, my son, almost died in my arms on the way to the Emerge. And I actually created Nutracelle because there are no safe proteins on the market at all anywhere that are peanut-free and gluten-free. So we're peanut-free, gluten-free, soy-free with no artificial junk, no artificial anything in it. So it's super, super important to my household. I'm telling you this right now as a bariatric patient, I would not have been able to maintain my weight loss, especially the further I get out, without it. It's been the most precious gift other than my children. So that's how I stay on track, because I don't want to give up pizza and I don't want to give up bread. So I'll show you guys how easy it is to cook with all that stuff. If you feel like you can eat more than you used to, if you feel like you're hungrier than you used to be, if you feel like you're sliding back into old habits, if you feel like your weight's getting worse, or if you're feeling out of control, you can turn it around. You absolutely can turn it around. We can do this together. Yes, calories still matter. How much you eat still matters. But it's super important that when you're putting the right foods in, it makes you feel full naturally. So you're not even thinking about it. You're not thinking, oh, I need to eat less. You're just not hungry. And admit you can't control sugar and carbs. Like I do this, you guys. If I go and I start eating, we go out for dinner and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to have that little bit of bread that they did. I'll be right back to normal tomorrow. I won't be. I treat it as if I was an alcoholic. I have to admit I cannot have sugar and I cannot have carbs, because once they start doing it, the hunger comes back, and it comes back ferocious. And all of a sudden I'm having to rely on willpower again. And it's hard. It's horrible. So I don't eat it. Just like a smoker can't quit by having 1 or 2 cigarettes, you have to crowd out sugar completely. So follow your Kickstart guide. If you become one of our customers, we have amazing guides that are all free for you to show you. We got meal plans, we got grocery lists, we got everything that you could need. Remove it. Follow your Kickstart plan. Remove sugar and carbs and keep high protein foods around. If you get snacky, snack on a protein treat or have a shake. Fill up with the stuff that's not going to cause weight gain. And give yourself a good 4 weeks to get off sugar. You know, if you started having weight gain, get off the sugar. This helps reduce the hunger. It helps to burn your own body's fat as fuel, which is what you want, right? All those giant triceratops that are trapped inside your fat cells, guess what? When you don't have sugar in your bloodstream, your body will actually start to break them apart back into fatty acids again, and you will be able to burn those triceratops off. You'll be able to burn them. I don't, but I will introduce a little more carbs in things like my leafy green vegetables, or, you know, there's this very small amount. If you go look, I can show you what my average day and my average diet is, or you can go grab one of the cookbooks online. At Nutracelle.com, we've got tons of them, and it will show you how many carbs are in everything. But I would go, when you're trying to cut sugar, you need to cut everything. You need to be like as close to zero as you can, and then you can gradually start having things, you know, like our high protein coconut bread or high protein pizza crust that will have 1 or 2 in there. And yeah, for sure, you're going to get a cookbook. We give out a cookbook in everybody's first order. And we have a coupon for you too, so you can save $15 on your first order on any NutriBox. It's coupon code GIFT4U with the number 4. So you can go ahead and put that in. If you forget it, just email it, info@Nutracelle.com, or reach out to us on Facebook and we'll give it to you. So GIFT4U, and you can put that right in, and it will save $15, just like cash, right off your first NutriBox order. So it doesn't work on single bags, but it works on your first NutriBox order. So there you go, you guys. I hope this was super helpful today and is helping you to stay on track, helping you to understand what's going on with your body, and most importantly, what that power of protein and prebiotic fiber can do to help you naturally feel full with food you actually love. All right, I am totally doing more of these. I have so much great information I can share to help us all do this together and stay on track together. So make sure you check us out on Obesity Help. We have a page up for webinars, so we'll keep updating as we have a new webinar come out. And also check out our Facebook page, because I often do Facebook Live webinars, support webinars. They aren't directly related to bariatric surgery, but they're all about what's happening with our bodies, about foods, tips, what to eat. And so we have a lot of really great information, and it's just great to help you stay on track, right? It's like Zig Ziglar said, motivation, you know, people say motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does showering, and you still have to do it every day, right? Same thing with staying on track and having your mind focused on what works and what doesn't work, so that your surgery is as successful as possible. All right, you guys, have an awesome day. We will send the recording out. It will probably not be until Monday till we send the recording out, but we will get that out to all of you. Thanks, guys.